gotta
Okay.
be like 8 or 9 inches. Like we're talking like it was kind of scary.
Josh,
don't want to scare.
before we get started, do you have anything?
No. I'm just saying you don't want to scare anybody. I just think it was. You know what I would say if I had to describe myself with no context, because this is where it's beginning. I would say very amenable, just very amenable, and everybody has a good time. So, anyways, William,
Do you see my face right now?
Yeah.
my face.
Yeah, you've got
Amenable?
you've got some kind of like Hello Kitty like filter.
No, just my amenable.
Oh, amenable. Oh yeah. No, that's a positive adjective. He's eager to please. No,
Well,
it's
but I'm not trying to be
right?
too. I'm not gonna be like, oh, it's gonna blow your mind. I'm like, it's amenable. It's this is good. I'm not. Whatever.
You want to undersell
You know
and
what?
over deliver.
Exactly.
It's accommodating. Okay. We actually are recording, guys. And I did not edit the last fucking one. I just set it as adults only, and I'm hoping for the best. I'm not editing this one. This is Misery Loves Company. It's a weekly reading series hosted by miserytourism.com. Every Friday, we welcome outsider and transgressive writers to come and share their work. It's 90 degrees today. The humidity is 180 fucking %. I'm wired up. And it's going to be a live one. It's going to be crazy tonight. Anyway, we've got people here. They want to be... I'm sorry, guys. We first up tonight is Griffin.
All right. You got the link to put in chat?
Yep, I do. 1 second. Yep.
Radical. Okay. I'm just going to go for it. Wake at dawn to unheard gunfire. On the corner stands a man. Watch the rest of last night's blood sport. On the corner stands a man. Speak to everyone and no one. On the corner stands a man. Siren howl and crying children. On the corner stands a man. On the corner stands a man. There is a wound in the world. My people, I never wanted us to die. My people, I never wanted death. They're not in any pain, my people. No pain, not any. Reincarnation and past life situations all the way through their death. No pain, a step to their side, my people, a single step. Not gonna know what the night's bringing. We should be happy, my people. A beautiful life, beautiful. There's a wound in the world. Lay down my burdens down by the riverside, and the river will rise up and wash them away, wash them all the way to the sea, a race with time. Every minute must be another step forward. In the olden days, they waited and they waited. We cannot wait. They tell you, get moving, get moving, get moving. There's a wound in the world. Chemical castration, electric shocks, the removal of expendable excess, the removal of unneeded people has already started. Psychic driving, memory insertion, perfect love and perfect hate reflected in stone cold eyes. Subliminal messaging, infrasound, mother's the best bet and don't let Satan draw you too fast. Sleep deprivation, psychotropic drugs. You can only die once. There is a wound in the world. 10 of us and 10 million fighting somewhere of you, 10 of us, and we have never loved an individual the way we love each other. We've lived as no other people have lived and loved, and we will not fall into your hands, the enemy's hands, the devil's hands. No, we will not fall. I know what I have to do. There's a wound in the world and she's bleeding to death.
That was fucking fire. What was... Now, I saw you posted on Twitter.
Yeah, so this was, most of this was a cut up of the Jonestown death tape, Patty Hearst's Simeonese Liberation Army communiques, and the last words of the gangster Dutch Schultz. About, like, I'd say 60-40 cut up to original stuff. And then the cut up was pretty much a third each.
What amazing sources to choose. That an inspiration, everyone. So that's
Oh yeah.
My Jonestown Joy Division mashup.
No, that sounds
really
great. I'll have to find it.
Okay, it's on my podcast.
Awesome. And Dutch Schultz was actually on trial in Malone, I think.
Really?
Yeah, for tax stuff, tax evasion.
Amazing.
did they like ship him up there because they didn't think they could get a fair jury in the city, or?
I think it was something like that. Yeah.
Oh, that's fucking wild. That is. I'm assuming the chemical castration bit is some of the 60% original.
So yeah, I think it was. It might have been there. I took some chunks from something about MK Ultra also. That might have been from that. But like, I mean, you know,
No, it's amazing that you took all those sources and you created something that feels like really cohesive and really like evocative and profound. Yeah, thank you, Griffith. That was awesome.
hell yeah.
Can I ask something? This is in the art world, you know, they appropriate different collages, and it's called appropriation. But it's really interesting. There's a lot of really cool writers in here who do take from other texts and then throw it into a stew. Is there a name for that particular kind of genre?
Yeah, cut up is a, well,
Oh,
cut up is one technique.
Oh no, but that's
Yeah.
old. That goes back to Burroughs. I mean,
Yeah.
you did all these really cool. You did like an accordion. You took a bunch of people and you played them all together. Is there a name besides cut
I
out
don't
for
know
that?
if
It should be.
there's a
Yeah.
name, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Literary collage, maybe. If
There
we're
you go.
being,
Yeah, literary collage is a good term. I mean, people refer to like remix culture, right?
Remix. Okay, that goes back to the music. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think every artist kind of has their own terminology, and some of what other people here have read in the past has been like AI assisted, where they'll actually take existing work and then feed it into an algorithm or something like GPT-3, and then see what it produces, where it's kind of like you're taking existing work from artists, feeding it into an artificial intelligence, and then producing like additional work.
No, I love that. It's the first time I've even heard about that was coming on here. So this is some fucking education.
Yeah, it's wild shit. I've learned a lot too. Like, I never know what's going to pop up here.
Yeah.
And actually, Blick, you're up next.
Oh, I'm next.
Let me put the link in the chat here.
This is called African Insomnia. I'm tired and I hate the daylight. The strange sun reflecting off the white jalabas irritates me. It lights up a city of men tugging at their genitals, smiling toothless smiles. It shows dogs and children, bone pressing against skin, begging for relief. The sun releases a warm smell of urine, and I hate its familiarity. Sunshine gives clear, ugly faces to the staccato voices echoing through the narrow and filthy streets. It is impossible to hide anything under that sweet, burning Moroccan sun. I feel exposed. Each day I amuse myself sketching until darkness frees me from an imaginary world that hides me from the sun. The thick, violent sunset is my signal, a multicolored alarm that assures me it's safe to leave the expensive hotel room. The evenings are cool by the sea, so I follow the salt scent for a quarter of a mile until I stand on the beach. The growing darkness makes people handsome. Eyes dominate. They make me feel secure. As long as I don't have to squint at the sun, which impairs my reading of men's eyes, I feel safe. At night, the only reflections of friendship or danger, not white jalabas. I listen to the waves slapping at the beach. Women in veiled burnouses file past me, clutching their small sons and staring at their feet. I smile at the women. Their silhouettes against the horizon turn them into phantoms, ensuring them of a most respected position in the night. The ocean sounds and phantoms become too familiar, so I walk up to the boulevard just as the night lamps snap on. I love the lamps because unlike the sunlight, they throw everything into shadow. The boulevard is stretched with brightly lit cafes housing lazy men and frightened tourists. I feel sick when I see a table of my tour companions. They're caressing their cameras and huddling around the candle burning on their cafe table, as if insisting that the flame and familiar bodies offer some sort of protection. I spit, quickly turn my head, and cross the street. The winding street to Medina is steep, and though it's larger than any other road in the city, it's a slow walk because of the crowds. The odor of raw sewage is carried by the sea breeze, and I like the contradiction of the two smells. I bump into many men who curse me and flash their teeth. I pause, stare into their faces, and continue undisturbed. Children spot me. The smaller ones fleece the crowd using mirrors. When they find a careless foreigner with a bulge in his back pocket, they signal to their comrades for help. Soon a half dozen desperate children run around me, hoping to distract me long enough for one of them to lunge at my wallet. I am amused by their ritual and pretend not to notice a small hand sliding across my buttock. I am ashamed of the boy's lack of skill. Like an annoyed jackass, I swiftly snap my leg back, creating a thud as my shoe connects with the boy's face. A scream, some swearing, and 4 more blocks until the Medina. The entrance to the Medina has competing merchants in blue jeans squatting in their stalls next to sleepy old men with henna beards. Furious bartering and rapid-fire tongues of children, along with shouts of taxi drivers and the hissing of horny young men, produce an uneven din that assaults the ears in waves. At every step, a craftsman pleads in broken English to make good business, my friend. I walk under the old stoneway passageway into the Medina proper and turn to face the square. Children running at breakneck speeds and the rich variety of colored jalabas, even more beautiful under the weak night lamps, fill me with an incredible sense of well-being until I notice the lack of women. I spin around, pushed to the side by 2 male couples with their arms around each other's waist, giggling. It angers me and I'm tempted to stomp their bare feet. 2 veiled women approach me, but the crowds are so thick that as soon as I feel a tug on my sleeve, I defensively cock my fist. When I see they are females, it excites me and I lower my arm. Each woman holds out a delicate bracelet of ivory and silver. I shake my head, but the taller woman with dark circles under her eyes giggles, "Is present, gift, go, gift, go." They attach them to my wrists. Flattered, I thank them and walk away. The women shriek, attracting the crowd's attention. "2 dirham each," they cry. "You said it was a gift," I yelled back, an explanation to the crowd more than to the women. The women raise their voices until I can feel the entire Medina watching the transaction. I take a 5 dirham bill out of my pocket that one of the women snatches out of my hand as the other pulls the gifts off my wrists. They disappear into the crowd, but I can hear their squeakish voices detailing their triumph. I laugh and I'm not ashamed of their skill. I push through the crowd. I'm frightened and it excites me. My pace quickens as I squeeze past a decaying movie house featuring Charlie Chaplin and rows of dilapidated cafes catering to men playing cards and rolling dice. The stench of excrement mingles with the sweet aroma of mint tea as my fear directs me to a cafe table. The waiter is offended by my request for wine, so I order a mint tea instead. The tea is hot. It burns my lip. 2 card players from the adjoining table look over and laugh. I exaggerate my pain, and soon the entire table joins in the laughter. A dark man in a frayed sweater signals me to join his table. The other card players ignore me. I jump into the game after watching 4 rounds. They play a form of poker with a 40-card deck, and I lose 23 dirham in 6 hands. I leave without any acknowledgement from the players. I continue my walk up a dusty hill to the Kasbah. The path is dark and I notice teenagers following me. I pick up a large stone as I draw closer to the ancient fort where the city's poorest live. I can hear the teenagers' strange whispers. Rats scurry from wall to wall as my footsteps crunch on the cobblestones. I feel a strange absence of danger. No one approaches me. I'm watched in silence. Exhausted, I head back to the hotel. I toss my rock into the shadows and listen to it scrape across the cobblestones. I feel defeated. Leaning back on my hotel steps, I look up at the black sky turning blue. The heat of a new sunrise presses against the emptiness inside my chest. Soon I will climb into bed and try to sleep. I'm tired and I hate the daylight. All right, thanks.
Man, what a perfect piece to read tonight.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Yes.
in the midst of
The
this
heat.
miserable, I don't know how it is. You're in NYC,
In New York
right?
City, New York City, it's horrible, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
We're
got to
at-
be. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Blake. Here upstate, it's been an absolutely miserable week with just heat and humidity that lingers through the night.
It's amazing. I guess I'm a Florida man. I love the heat. This can't get better. I love it.
You love it? Oh, Florida, it's so okay.
I have a central AC.
None of you guys know what heat is.
Yeah, well, exactly. And I'm not saying I can't speak from that, but I'm just saying, we complain now. I told someone, I don't want to hear. I went to the cafe and they don't make eye contact with me anymore at the cafe, but I still go. And they were like talking about like, oh, how it's so hot, and like, oh, you want to wear your cardigans? You want to have layers? You want to wear your layers in autumn and talk about how amazing that is? I'm like, this is it's gonna be 4 months of terrible winter sludge, disgusting slush. You get into your apartment and there's weird shit on your pants that you don't even know where it came from. You're gonna complain about this heat? It's insane. I'm with Eris. Clearly, she's talking as a California woman. This heat.
Now that's
You
true.
live in the valley with a crystal meth addiction.
Isn't
Jesus.
heat the absence
That's
of
life.
absence of
That's
cold
life.
though? Heat
What?
is the absence of cold, right? Or do I have that backwards
No,
again?
cold is the absence of heat.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, not in Canada.
But anyway, Blake, that was phenomenal. I love your descriptions, and in this piece, it's one of those like sublime choices where the work, like the words in the work, so perfectly match the moment that I'm anyway in right now. Like you perfectly capture that sense of like that weird sense that you can only really have on a hot, humid summer night, where on the one hand, you're sticky, you're miserable, everything looks ugly to you. And on the other hand, there's a strange like mysticism and magic to it, and you want to hold on to it. And you really captured that in this.
Well, I'll tell you what that all that was that I wanted to, I think 3 times in my life, I had nervous breakdowns. I didn't know about it until later, what they called it. So I wanted to just write a nervous breakdown strictly from an external point of view, not in,
Right.
So
So you're not so much in the character's head, and you're not like saying
Right.
like I'm
It's-
losing my shit, but you get
Right,
that sense
right.
of someone losing their shit just through that, like watching them behave.
It's like a movie
kind of
camera, like
interact.
walking down with, it's like walking down the street with a movie camera. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
well, it was a
Well, thanks.
fantastic piece. Thank you so much, Blake.
Thanks.
Dan is up next.
Hello? No, are we saving the poems, the naughty poems for later?
Yeah, the poems
Okay.
will all go in a batch. So just whatever you had that you
Sure.
Oh, is this some after hour? Are you gonna do what I did when I said the problematic poem and I waited till it wasn't recorded?
No, we'll be recording them, but
Okay.
Mm-hmm. This is cancel bait, late babies. Okay. This chapter is another one from Wanderer. It's called Water, Water Everywhere, but I'm still drinking this beer. Pacing in the old room that was once mine but felt familiar. The police keep coming in to toss the joint, but all they find are boxes literally full of red herrings. Maybe that's getting annoying to them, but that's their problem. Everything I set down on a table since I've been here disappeared below the mess. Like the floor was a bag of holding, only spitting out the things they didn't think they could keep profiting from in some sense. This place seemed fake nice. The men, women, everyone here still wasn't getting the point they'd been trying to make. I know a few looked me in the eyes and saw who I was, but there were many trapped inside this false perception of the world. I had tried the light touch when I walked out of the liquor store with a case of beer only paying half of what it was worth. I had tried a gentle tap, a wink, a nudge, but still they maintain this way of being, forever stuck in petty grudges, real or imagined. So I guess it was time for another shower today, a real shower. I stripped the curtain and let the water run onto the bathroom floor. I stepped on broken glass from the mason jars I had smashed the night before. I took a beer out of the fridge, but it was only just cold enough for this performance. I poured it slow into a tilted glass mug in front of the bathroom mirror. Nothing foamed, pure liquid. A perfect pour, if I did say so myself. I turned the lights out and blocked the windows, turned the fan's timer to 30. The real trick was breathing out until my lungs hurt. The mirror fogs up from a mix of breath and hot water. I thanked the ghost in the mirror, tapped my clear glass to the reflective glass, then knocked on the wood counter so that ghosts knew I was thinking of them. Then you just drink. 3 breaths between gulps. Just enough for the ritual because this one was mostly out of my hands. Sometimes that's the best way to treat magic. I don't want to see the destruction of these things, but I don't mind hearing it. Wiping my lips, I stripped down and stepped into the hot water. Knob turned to 9 until my skin felt no burn. And then I turned the knob to point to 3 o'clock. Every pore on my skin closed up like a scared clam, but I blocked the freezing water with my right hand until it went completely numb. An important first step when your fists aren't made of literal steel, just figurative. Breathing deep, I felt the words return to my breath. Akali, 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 Leolanga. The phrases were both gifts from people I loved despite maybe never really seeing them at the time, but I knew they saw me now. My fist closed under the freezing water and I hammered the inside of the shower with my knuckles, north to west to south, then turned to the fog mirror at the east and bowed. À la prochaine. In the distance, I heard the flood siren begin, and this tiny, evil part of me began to laugh as I turned off the water. That screaming eagle of a siren got louder and louder just to drown out the laughter. No one was in real danger, but the fear is always worse than the prick of the blade. I thought about Emma hiding in plain sight, smirking again, but no words. I guess together we were like this broken shower. The water kept alternating, and whatever pleasure came from us being together was just the alternating extremes. There was never just warmth or coolness in isolation as a reprieve from the weather of the world. The relief only came from us flipping between ice cold and burning hot to balance the other. Simplicity lies in seeing what you are looking at and looking closely at what you are seeing. I didn't see Emma until I saw her there, completely transformed, yet I knew who it was. The smell, the face, I knew it. Maybe others did too, and I'm happy she's found her place, even if it wasn't with me. We saw each other just enough to remember for the next time. Her memories of me are tucked away in a safe place, and my memories of her are the same. These are the good memories that you'll have. They'll appear to notice when you rediscover the people and places who have always been good to you and good for you. I mopped up the water with dirty laundry, then pulled an apple from the fridge to dig out and turn into a pipe. The siren's volume slid further and further to the right while I strutted down the beach. Cars and trucks full of evacuation items streamed past. Some were mostly heirlooms, but I saw IKEA furniture loaded into pickups like it was the last bus out of Saigon. The gas station across from the beach stunk with the feeling of human bones collected and processed into fuel. 2 native kids on bikes were stopped on the edge of the widening highway waiting for an opportunity to cross. I walked into the asphalt and turned my back on the line of rich white people waiting to get out of the flood area. Little did they know. I hope one day they'll know to yield to you, I said to the kids on bikes. Same, one said over her shoulder. I turned back, still shaking my head at the white retirees in the Prius. The woman reached to the steering wheel to honk, but her husband stopped her. I gave him a wink and searched the edge of the beach for a marker until I found it. 9 sand dollars in a row across the lip of the bike path. I looked to the sun directly overhead, then found the right alignment with the shore and the sun. Straight towards the beach where Vancouver sat darkly in the horizon under its aura of smog and bullshit. Tiny crabs snipped at my toes, and they peeked their tiny heads from beneath the rocks one at a time. I shook out the towel and sat with the apple and the knife, carving it into a pipe and loading it with a few nugs out of the glass jar. When I tried to light it, the lighter felt empty. It was nearly new, but I shook it and it was empty. This is what it feels like to be out of sync with reality. So I waited for whatever was missing. Down the beach, Pasty old people seemed to disregard the siren entirely. Maybe they were waiting too. Behind me, I saw who I called in the shower. 3 Sikhs and their 5Ks were waiting around the sand dollar border. I couldn't see their faces yet, but I put the knife away and held the apple until I heard footsteps. 2 of the Akalis walked up and looked around me, holding hands. You got a lighter, bro? I looked up with my left eye closed. Both him and his partner were wearing dark sunglasses, hiding their eyes. What's up with yours? He asked, barely paying attention. I emptied that shit last night. He stopped and we both shared a chuckle, and his partner looked between us, trying to figure out the joke. You want to hit this? I held the apple to him with my left eye open and my right eye closed. Nah, I'm good, bro. They walked onto the shore, but I saw the male Akali's back straighten like a gunshot, dead in his tracks. He said, baby, I'll catch up with you, and his partner continued to the water line. He walked up to me with his phone in hand. Bro, you smoking out of an apple? Hell yeah. First time I smoked out of an apple. Same. I said it was smiling so big I felt insane, even though I knew exactly what was happening. Can I take a pic of this? I want to send it to my homies. He said, you did it different than we did though. My pleasure. Everyone has their own flavor, their own technique. Akali took out his camera and I held the apple out while whispering in my head, these plants were the way to hear God and the earth at the same time. In my neighborhood, the weed was the way to ground yourself amidst all the other bullshit. The guns in your face, the druggings, hitting houses, making motherfuckers who overreached kneel in the bog, the blood feuds, the one-on-ones that went 50 to 50 and 15 with a phone call, hand-to-hands that went to bats and pipes to guns. The best of us tried to gather around a bong or a pipe or a hookah with a few T3s and laughed at super troopers while the fires in the city raged on. Every daily newspaper came in plastic wrapper to keep the blood out and the blood in, but we made it out with our souls intact, and I was happy to see you recognize me. The male Akali smiled and nodded with his picture, and it seemed like he felt my thoughts. They know, they know. You have to hear all the gods around you before you can hear the one inside of you. Of all religions, the Sikhs remembered the need for equal measures of saint and soldier in all humans. The divine feminine and divine masculine dance together, and they recognized the holy in everything. I had tears in my eyes remembering their gift, hoping I never let them down, hoping they found mine worthy. The male Akali walked back to the shoreline to his partner, who was already knee-deep in the seawater. Water dragon. Akali means water dragon in ancient Persian. Akal means immortal in Punjabi. They still know. I still remember too. I heard the name in my dreams a decade ago, and for a good reason I remember. I cleared the apple, then ate it to the core, and left it for the baby crabs that were crawling to the surface of the beach. Behind me, a younger water dragon in her 5Ks was stretching and doing warm-ups, getting ready for something. I gave her a platonic wink and a thumbs up because I had an inkling of an idea about what was going to happen. Walking north up the beach, the flood siren silenced, and I couldn't help but laugh. I finished.
Okay, I wasn't sure. I mean, you were. I thought maybe you were just adjusting your phone or something. That was fucking phenomenal. I want to see. I want to see a film adaptation of that.
Same.
I love the fucking world building. I love you get like at that shit like the really great like surrealist films get at, where you can watch like scene by scene, moment by moment, reality like disintegrating, coming undone, and it's just fucking phenomenal stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dan. Sorry, God, it's hot today. And another piece that felt really appropriate for this moment, you know. Michael, you're up next.
Cool. Let me just post this.
Sure.
So I was going to read the last chapter of my book, but I got skittish after reading over it. So I'm going to read another segment that I have not read here before that would probably require a lot less setup. Really, I don't think it needs any. So I'm just going to read this instead. Lena wakes up in bed, sweat doused, her heart shuddering like it's desperate to flee. She makes a fist, presses it to her chest, and breathes deeply. Her heart slowly resumes its normal pace. Nestling her head deeper into the pillow and closing her eyes, Lena's mind begins to grasp the reality around her. She dreamt about Gray, sitting in his basement of the ruined house, crying about a baby. A woman clutched a child and shouted at Lena and wanted to know why the baby was dead. Lena tried to respond, but the words stayed in her mouth and her body felt like it was melting. The baby in the woman's arms stared at Lena with eyes like bonfires beyond control. The walls around them crumbled and Lena was crushed, and the shudders of her mind lurched her to consciousness. Lena sits up and drinks from the glass of water on the bedside table. Pale blue morning light seeps through the cinder block-sized windows of the basement. She eases out of the bed and walks to the storm door and shoves it open. Cold air hugs her and she closes her eyes, stretches, feels the aches fade. With the door still open, she walks over to the desk and slumps into her chair. The camera sits in front of her computer keyboard. Its charging cord is plugged into the wall and the battery light winks green, ready for more. She unplugs it, opens the viewfinder, and scrolls down the list of recording files. There are 3 from the night before. She selects the first one and hits the play button. On the screen, the camera pans down a set of stairs and into the basement. The view opens up on Gray stretched out on the couch in the basement. As Lena walks into the room, Gray swings his legs onto the floor and sits up. He smiles weakly. Then, lifting the plate of powder again, he holds it out to her. "Saved you some," he says, his tone friendly, almost hopeful. Lena laughs weakly behind the camera. "No, thanks," she says. Gray sets the plate down in front of him. He is shirtless, barefoot, with the American flag stretched across his lap. On top of the flag is a half-eaten sandwich cradled in a paper wrapper. "Where'd you get that?" Lena asks. "I went out," says Gray. He clears his throat. "Come sit down and turn that off." The camera seems to start shaking a little in her hand. "I want to talk first," she says. "We can talk. How are you feeling?" "Alive. I'm sorry we left you behind." "It's all right." "What happened after we left?" "I woke up in a bed, very weak, very tired. They stitched me up and gave me some medicine." "How hurt were you?" "Very." There's a pause in the conversation. Gray wraps the half sandwich back into the paper and sets it down in front of him. He's looking past the camera at Lena. "Come sit down," he says, "and turn that off." After a few moments, the recording cuts out. Lena rubs her eyes again and selects the second file. The screen is black. Someone near the camera breathes heavily. "Alexa," says Gray. "What did you say?" Lena asks. "Did you turn the camera on?" "Yes. Why?" "Because I wanted to. I'm gonna smoke." "Me too." Something wooden creaks. A lighter bursts to life before going dark again. Then another, a wobbling light picked up by the camera. Gray coughs thickly and the wooden thing creaks again. "That felt good. Do you feel good?" he asks. Lena scoffs. "I don't know what I feel." A pause. "Please don't do that. It was just my hand. Please don't do that." More quiet. "I want to ask you something," Lena says. "What?" "It's about what you said before, about why you're doing all this." "Okay." You said you're doing this because you had to. Why is that?" "Because I'm a hero." "No." "No? No, there's something else. Tell me." A long exhalation. Then, "Because it's who I am. It's all I am. Nothing more but this." "What does that mean?" A lighter sparks up again and some of the glow is caught by the camera. It hears the crackle and hiss of the flame against tinfoil and its contents. Then another exhalation as Gray releases a quiet ooh before a coughing fit overtakes him. "Because one day I left behind everything that I am and became this, turned myself into this." "Everything?" "Yes." "That can't be true. You must have taken something." Gray laughs gently. "Maybe," he says. A pause. "Can we do that again?" No. Another pause. Please don't do that with your hand. A piece of wood inside the couch cracks as someone out of view of the camera moves. Someone stands and the camera hears the jingle of an undone belt. Where are you going? Asks Gray, his voice thicker now, his words elongated. Nowhere, says Lena. You don't have to do that, Alexa. What? Will you stay a little longer? Gray asks. Please? What did you call me? Please don't leave. You called me Alexa. Who is Alexa? Please? I'm not leaving, but tell me who Alexa is. Who? A long silence, minutes long. The camera beeps and the night vision activates. Lena sits nude on the couch in Gray's basement, the lens close to her face, a lit cigarette perched in her mouth. After staring into the lens, Lena sets the camera down in front of the couch before crossing her legs. Gray sits behind her, shirtless, the flag spread over his legs. One of his hands is on the couch inches from Lena's leg, and the other grips the arm of the couch. Please shut that off, Gray says. Lena looks away from the camera lens, and the picture cuts out. Lena sets the camera down on the table and rubs her face. She thinks of Gray's face, the size of his hands in the dark, the smell of his unwashed body, the way she shivered as Gray held her, his own body quivering as if afraid, until she pulled away, sat up, and reached for the camera. A feeling of mixed disgust but strange attraction coils inside her like a confused snake. It's not regret she feels, nor that some line has been crossed, but rather that the boundary between them has been irreversibly redefined. Maybe you should leave that clip out of the final cut, she says. Then she clears her throat, selects the third file, and hits play. Gray raises a window and clambers inside. The view is unsteady as Lena hesitates, then follows, camera tucked close as she lifts her body through the opening. Shit, she mutters. Come on. The camera's view twists wildly as Lena tumbles to the floor. She scrambles to her feet, and the camera's focus settles on an open door. She scans her surroundings, a room with a stripped bed and overshadowed by mounds of clothing. Ugh, Lena whispers. The fuck? The camera's focus pauses and moves closer to the door. The doorway leads into a square-shaped room, one half of which is a small kitchen with a linoleum floor. Dirty plates, half-filled cups, pizza and takeout boxes crowd the counter. The other half of the room has a small couch at the far end, a coffee table, also cluttered with debris, and a television with some late-night TV talk show droning on its screen. Gray is standing in front of the couch, staring down at a man slumped back. The man is in boxer shorts and a ragged t-shirt with some graphic design that's difficult to make out on the camera screen. He looks dead. Gray is saying something to the man as Lena gets closer. And then I'll go, he says. The man on the couch stirs and laughs. Jimmy, the man says, letting his head fall back against the cushion. Are you a ghost? I don't know who that is, says Gray. Sure you do. It's the eyes, the man says, his mouth twisting into a blackened grin. If you're here to kill me, do it, like the others. It doesn't have to be like that. It does. And say my name. You know me. My name. I don't know you. Say my name. Then say your name. Say our names, Jimmy. The man starts to laugh again, but his voice breaks down to spewing coughs. Here, take it. This is what you want, right? The man jabs a finger at the table. Gray picks up something and pockets it. Gray then moves around the table, his legs almost touching the man, who looks up with an expression of mixed fear and pride in his face. The good times, he says. I remember them. Do you? Gray opens his mouth but says nothing. He then grabs the man by the hair and punches his face, the wet thwacks overpowering the whimpers, the man a defenseless animal under attack, blood fleeing his besieged and misshapen nose. Gray finally releases the man and shoves him back into the couch. The man's head hits the wall and leaves a dent before he slumps forward and is still. Gray turns his head toward the camera. Look, he says to Lena. Look, 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 he continues, louder and more frantic, more pleading, until the footage cuts out. And that's it.
Fucking awesome. I love this. I love the way the tension builds throughout this section. Like there's so much like subtle tension in the dialogue sequences early in the chapter where you can tell, you can intuit that something is wrong, something's awry, that there's this sense of like there's this like growing disconnect between these two people, and the way that you get that really like scene of explosive violence at the end. I just love the way this chapter is structured, and even the opening where it opens with her like basically it was like her dream about losing the baby or something. Like that sequence was a fantastic opening. Then you have this very subtle escalating sequence of dialogue, and then you have a really explosive ending, and I just love the way it's structured, I guess.
Thank you. Yeah, and so this was like half of the chapter. It like continues, and this is like kind of the part of the book where she's beginning to figure out who he really is, and that he's got some local history. It's pretty close to the end, but yeah, there's some like other stuff that references earlier parts. Like there is, I'm planning to read it in the future, but there's like a scene involving like a baby and stuff. But yeah, I'm glad you liked it.
It was fantastic. Thank you, Michael. Up next is Josh.
Well, thank you. And I like that you used intuit's good. And people don't know that some people say incentivize, and that's just wordiness, incent. You can incent someone to do something. So when you said intuit, it reminded me of incent. People don't know this. I was writing for a tiny community newspaper a few years ago, and we actually got a comment in the comment section when I used that word, and they're like, incent's not a word. And, I posted the Webster, literally the Webster's. You can look it up. It's totally an alternative, and it's just, why wouldn't you, right? That's so many syllables saved, whatever.
Especially in print, why not be efficient?
No, and that's exactly it. Thank you, William. That's why, we really get each other.
It's just an intuitive connection, right?
And a couple other things just before, Blick has had a line that said, the growing darkness makes me feel handsome. I think something like that. I was trying to type out the line. I really like that. And then there was another line. You have to hear. Oh, this was in Trauma Babies. You have to hear all the gods around you before you can hear the one inside you. That was nice. I would, it seems like a thing I would mock. No, I totally believe that that's the case. So that was also a really beautiful thing. And then my last note here makes no sense because I'm taking notes. Because, I got into the whole hosting thing before, and I'm like, and it was Eris saying, have you seen your face? She said that earlier. She said, have you seen your face? I think she meant what was on my face, but have you seen your face? Yeah, I live with it. I have to live with this, okay? So, yeah, Eris, seen it. So, yeah.
That's Leo season getting to you. I was talking about me.
Oh, yeah? Well, no, you're not a mean person, but I mean, it's true, though. You can observe,
I am a mean person. What?
You don't see me. You're not mean to me. I don't know. We've not had a mean interaction yet. Although I don't remember the podcast because I was fucking blasted. So several poems, but like the first one, should I read the one, William? That was.
We're gonna do all of the literary nobody poems together in a batch at the end. So
that's cool. Okay, so I'll just start with something new. Okay, so most of these, I don't think I've read any of these here before, which I like to know. That's why I've been reading lately. And a couple are coming out in Diabetic Press. Actually, no, they're not. I mean, actually, you're getting the Rejected batch. I was invited to do their reading at Diabetic Press, which is pretty. The Alexandra girl, she's pretty cool. So I'm glad to be, in that reading. Not that it's, but so some of these are the ones she rejected that don't have a home yet. Some new stuff, and then some other stuff from the book. So I'll start with Everyday Eulogies. Everyday Eulogies. An empty rabbit cage on a lawn around the corner where the pretty Croatian woman lives. These stickers pasted on the back window of a minivan depicting each family member, sticker mom, sticker dad, sticker children, but one of the kids is peeled off. Only the adhesive residue remains. There are eulogies everywhere. That's one. Peugeot. Ride through the suburbs drunk at 3 a.m. on a 12 speed and take the corners blind because you know no one else is around. This one's called, this one's, I don't have rape fantasies, but it's not because I'm a good person. I can't convincingly imagine being able to overpower another human or even a medium-sized animal. Possibly a large bird would present certain difficulties. Chess pervert. Playing online chess against a user named Theranos is real. And between every move, I type something like, oh yes, that feels so good. March 27, 2020. Kennel. Some days, even preparing a meal for myself is taking care of a pet that I don't want anymore. And then sick ride, bro. A customized smart car in an Ed Hardy wrap is parked somewhere in Coronado, California. There is perfection in this world that some will never know before the horrors that await us all. Not sure which the smart car is. That's my little medley.
Those were fantastic, Josh. I think one of those at least is coming out in Misery Tourism, I believe.
Yeah, if I'm allowed, yeah, we're gonna do it. We just gotta. Oh, dude, I can't be too loud about it. But yeah, we're gonna put it up because I talked to other people about it. But yeah.
Okay, yeah, I thought I won't say which one. People can guess, but one of those is coming to Misery Tourism if Josh doesn't get cold feet. Also, Josh, speaking of poems coming to Misery Tourism, you need to send us your Dale Earnhardt poem still.
I was actually, so it's pretty much yes, I will, because I was
just email it to us. We'll go up with the batch that's coming up because Rudy and I will be heartbroken if that shit shows up in press anywhere but fucking Misery Tourism.
No. I want that to go. I love that you guys liked it, that one, and no, for sure. And thanks for again and
That's the highest compliment. Heartbroken. If it's anywhere else,
We
enjoy
will.
that.
We'll be crushed.
I will.
Like his car, Rudy.
Like you Dale Earnhardt's car, yes.
Well, can I read the Dale Earnhardt one then?
Yeah, sure. Before you do, I just want to say I do want to comment on one of the poems you read that isn't coming to Misery Tourism. The first one, that is so fucking good. The residue of the kids scraped off the back of the. Oh my god, what a fucking image!
I love. I actually saw that like months ago. I was trying to work it into something, and I wish I had more. But I saw the rabbit cage today.
Mm-hmm.
There's a fucking smoking Croatian. She's got to be Croatian because she looks Russian, but a bit ethnic. They're like, oh, they're Croatian. Like a little bit tan skin, but like hot Russian looking, and the rabbit cage. And she has the saddest house. I want to rescue her. No, not that I could rescue her. I couldn't. It would be a nightmare for both of us. But I walk past and always. And she's always fucking smoking a cigarette with her legs open on the fucking. I'm sorry. Anyways, it got me thinking. And she wasn't there this morning, but instead of her being there being fucking hot, there was an empty rabbit cage. And I was like, this is sad. What happened to the rabbit?
Right. No, and those two, the way you arrange those two stanzas or whatever back to back is beautiful because you have the one that's very kind of gentle and subtle, and you get that sense of this small loss, right? That still feels a little profound. And then you hit us with the scraped off kid, and it gets so much bigger and so much uglier and also so much funnier somehow,
Josh, I like to consider your sort of rambling explanations after the poem as a critical part of the sort of poetic unit. Really, the poems as published are not the same as the poems as read. The poems as read with their context are much better.
Well, are you, yeah, well, you know what? I actually am grappling, are
Oh,
you,
also the scraped off window kit is for sale baby shoes, never worn, adapted to the modern day.
so I like that you said that because that's actually, I didn't think that when I saw it, but I was like, that's where my mind went. And I agree. I totally agree with you. And now when you say that though, is that a slight? Is it just this is how it is? What's the reaction there? Like, do you think it's bad because of that?
Oh no, I think in a good way. In a good way.
Because that was what I was kind of going, and I went in the minimal. Anyways, that was yeah. But I agree.
Oh shit, it's a dead kid.
Yeah. Well, that's again okay. I'm glad that everybody got that because I didn't know whether I had to explain too much. But
No,
anything,
no, that was perfect.
and it was so weird. Why would you do that? Why would you do that? And why would you go rabbit cage without a dead rabbit? Right? There's no way. There's a dead rabbit.
Maybe. Okay, hear me out. Kid didn't die. Kid just ran away. Kid
That's
is living happily with the grandparents
When
that's
and
a
has
possibility.
rejected. What if they kick the kid out for being gay?
my
Well,
mom. Okay,
so-
my mom told me that the rabbit was living on a farm, and I told my coworkers at work, and they were like, "Dude,
Durbin! Hi.
rabbit got put down. Like the rabbit's dead. Like your mom just told mother," and I'm like, "Mother wouldn't say that. Mother wouldn't lie to me."
So there are, I think, two other possibilities here for the scraped off kid that are maybe less benign or more benign than the kid, whatever. One is that maybe they got a decal that was like a baby or something and had to replace it as the kid grew, because sometimes you'll see them and it's like the mom
Right.
holding the baby. That's a possibility. Second possibility, and this is that maybe the kid transitioned and the parents were accepting of it and replaced a boy decal with a girl decal or vice versa. Who knows? Maybe it's
love
actually a story of wonderful acceptance and joy and not one of a tragic death of
It's
an 8-year-old.
not.
But you know what? I actually really love, again, Griffin, thank you, because that's actually where my mind went. And people make fun of people shit on Hemingway, but I'm sorry, you don't need to read all the early Hemingway, but there are like 6 or 7 short stories in the short story collection that are fucking just minimalist masterpieces of
Soldier's Home.
I haven't read a single fucking word of Hemingway other than
Read
those
Soldier's Home.
6
Soldier's
words.
Home. Soldier's Home.
because people will shit on them, but
I've seen that movie with Owen Wilson. Does that count?
No.
So honestly, William, I don't want to. Things are getting. So I just want to read "Killing Dale Earnhardt."
Oh yeah, right. Shit. Definitely, Josh. Sorry.
And and it's going to be slightly tweaked because it's still. But this is the poem that got the fucking gamer nerds excited because it referenced video games, and I was a gamer, I guess, in the sense that like I didn't really. It wasn't my.
Josh, are you calling the editors of Misery Tourism the fucking gamer nerds?
I mean, whatever, yeah.
Oh, I love it, Josh. I'm sorry. Go on.
You got a problem with video
Speaking
games,
of
boy?
that, okay, can I have a moment of silence for my lost PS Vitas? Okay, thank you.
F's
Yes.
in the chat for her PS Vita.
So, Killing Dale Earnhardt. People are always so sure that they can trace the origins of a troubled person, like a school shooter, to hours spent playing some RPG, or maybe enacting violent fantasies against women in Grand Theft Auto. By this logic, I think childhood psychologists should have been alerted to some kid I knew in my suburb growing up. It was a summer afternoon, and it had to have been the year 2001 because earlier that February, NASCAR legend Dale Earnhardt was killed during the last lap of the Daytona 500 as he took to Final Bend in his signature black stock car. The reason this detail is important is because the kid was playing NASCAR on Nintendo 64 with a friend, and Dale Earnhardt was still a driver you could select to race as. And also because the kid was repeatedly smashing Dale Earnhardt into the fourth corner of the simulated Daytona 500 instead of just doing laps like you were supposed to do. Eventually, an adult noticed what was going on, how the game wasn't being played properly. If you're gonna do that, I'm going to make you turn the game off, said the father of the kid who was not massacring late NASCAR driver Dale Earnhardt in a holocaust of pixels and primitive CGI over and over again. What kind of kid does that? What kind of man do they grow up to be? I was that kid. I killed Dale Earnhardt like 17 times that afternoon. So.
Josh, I
Josh?
think we found the psychosexual origin of your Dinky car thing.
That fucking killed me the first time you read it. It killed me the second. It killed me now. We have to.
Also, I'm not going to change it. I'll just send it. If I have a slight tweak, I get fussy.
Yeah, just email us and send us a revised version. But I want that shit locked down. Thank you, Josh. Sam is up next. Are you still with us?
Hello?
Can hear you.
Okay, yeah. 1 second. I have two. One's really funny, and then one's not funny. So hang on. Where are they? So here's the not funny one. They had met on Tinder. Both found the other attractive, and both were surprised that the other didn't ghost after a few messages. He asked if she could meet Thursday, but she said Wednesday worked better for her. He said, okay, let's meet at X. She didn't like X, but didn't want to be picky since he agreed to meet on a different day. It was 7 o'clock and he was nervous. He drank 2 pints before she showed up. You're a tattoo artist? He asked. That's stupid. She had that in her profile and you already talked about that. He was tired and missed her reply. I used to draw. My high school had a good art instructor, but he passed. Oh, that's sad. Good teachers are hard to find. Pause. Sip. Did you have any at Heron? Huh? Oh, good teachers. No one memorable. Silence. He sipped his beer, then gulped it. They were sitting at the bar, facing TVs. A football game was on. I had one, actually. Oh. He really brought home how with projects, we don't really finish them. He waited for her to go on. She didn't. He understood after. Art is only abandoned, or some empty phrase like that was what she meant. He felt bad for how he just dismissed her and thought, I switched to science. It's more boring than hard. I thought art school looked like it was harder, he said. He had been to college before and flunked out. He didn't mention this. I mean, it depends. More patience, maybe. Projects can take a long time because you have to make sure they can survive after they're abandoned, he thought. Now the phrase seemed less empty. I get it now. I feel good. He ordered another beer. She did too. She looked at him with a big smile that gave him energy to talk, but the manager spoke from behind him. She and the manager were friends from art school. He had a gallery he exhibited at once a month. They started talking. Yeah, how he stressed that you never finished something. Yeah, that's when it clicked for me. She and the manager, talking about the good teacher, enthusiastically reiterating the empty phrase. He missed the beat again. Maybe you had to be there, he thought. He ordered another beer and offered her a smoke. She gulped her drink and told the manager they'd be right back. The manager asked if he could bum a smoke too. He smiled and obliged. I'm cool. 3 of us are cool. He felt good. They lit up, enjoyed the feeling of needing to sit down after a first inhale. Hey, I'm gonna leave pretty soon. She and the manager exchanged numbers and planned an exhibit for some of her recent pieces. The manager said something about pointillism. She said it was chauvinist. She had a different name for her style of pointillism that was different. He began to feel locked up, only able to issue silent judgments behind a barred door. Hopefully she didn't notice. She left after the smoke, giving her drink to the art studio manager guy. On the drive home, the man stopped by the liquor store and bought a pint of wild turkey. After half the bottle was gone, he felt a numb optimism that the three of them would forget about this. All right, that's the first one. And then the second one I wrote today. Hang on. It's might turn into something. My friend cannot seem to grasp that people have lives beyond the ones he chooses to interpret into their behavior. He's whining about people liking Marvel movies and good restaurants. The people he's talking about are not only more fun than he is, but more agile intellectually and conversationally. But they like food that tastes good and looks nice. They're consumerists because they like food that tastes good and looks nice. They're on Tinder and having sex instead of getting married, and that's a sign society is bad. They are smarter than him, living in their authentic historic moment as he seethes, often drinking alone, wallowing in his well-deserved depression. I take his unhappiness, the unhappiness of both him and myself, and those like us in general, as a sign that parts of society are still functioning correctly, still keeping the refuse at bay, holding them to account whether or not they allow themselves to, for what ugly, boring, intentional failures they are. We make an argument against universal basic income and against funding the arts. I find him worse than myself, though. He writes his thoughts, and his thoughts and insights are ones which normal, intelligent people intuit at a glance as being so banal and inconsequential that, though they're on deck, fully articulated, these thoughts are never spoken because all intelligent, normal adults understand that everybody already knows these things. They know about the loneliness of modernity and could speak of it, but they do not, because proper manners dictates that we do not farther cloud the conversation by raising our hand and speaking for participation credit. We don't qualify to speak because we are not participants. I have never seen a man that has so purposefully failed to emulate the virtues of the philosophy he tries so hard to seem to read. But he is my only friend. What a loser I must be. So anyway, what have you been up to? I've been reading Nabokov. I picked up Ada. Nice. I'd only read 10 pages and put it down to go for a jog 2 weeks ago. It was still sitting face down at my desk next to a wrapper for a McDouble. But the interesting thing, I don't know, Nabokov is great, but he then began a strange performance, a sort of rant on Nabokov. But it was so qualified, I'm not sure it meets the criteria for a rant. He used the word dialectic twice, like by virtue of that word, which means something like seeking truth by means of the furniture of conversation. But it doesn't mean that to him. To him, it means I am obligated to impose logic and justify all his ad hoc bullshit myself by means of a method that by definition cannot be standardized since it's always being refined. But it lets him counter that if my conclusion is wrong, or I find fault in his argument, I am being rude. I am a bad friend. You must be hungry, he might say. The nerve. I wanted to throw my drink in his face, but I gulped it instead and found him a bit more pleasant because throwing Nabokov under the bus, but he didn't use anything resembling a verb. He more eked out the image of Nabokov getting hit by a bus like a slow and silent fart that would be blamed on me if I pointed out what he was doing. It was masterful. He was like Floyd Mayweather. He didn't defeat Nabokov so much as give me, the listener, all the tools to do it myself. He brought me to the edge of a cliff, my toes just over the sides, and if I fell, I would land flat on a giant red button that makes me say, Nabokov is a writer that's easy to like, or Nabokov is a writer that impresses people, instead of saying, Nabokov writes great books. A light jab, that's annoying. Another, you throw a right cross and it hits him square in the forehead. Now you're embarrassed in the middle of a fight. Jab, now you're bleeding, he opened a cut. Now you're bored. You're bored during your own fight against Floyd Mayweather. You've already lost. I ordered another drink and it was shaking in my hand as he kept going on and on. Nabokov, you're thrashing Nabokov. not thrashing, but Chinese water torturing his image like you're in CIA. How dare you? A fellow writer. You claim to be a communist, yet you have no solidarity. You're a scab, I wanted to say. Why? Nabokov is one of the greatest pedophile writers who ever lived. He's no Joyce or Proust or Mann, but he's up there, I wanted to say. Nabokov, he's the cream of the crop of second-tier pedophiles, far above the two of us, mere straight white males attracted to women. If Nabokov were here, he'd rape both of us in the ass after taking a Viagra because we're 30 and not 13. And we would deserve it, because I can't find a way to stop you from doing this. We decided to have another round, then 3 more. I was smiling dumbly and honestly so entertained. I have never had such a pleasant evening. He gave me a bit of coke and we hit 1, 2, and 3 more bars in the block before ending up at Cozy. Every Friday night for another year, or 2, or 3, having just passed the best years of our lives the same way. 2 best pals. Okay, that's the end.
Sam, you fucking killed me with that. With the last one. And I love that you chose to read these 2 pieces together, because these feel like parallel pieces to me. Like you have two
I wrote them both
like,
this week.
huh?
I wrote them both this week.
Oh, huh. Because they're both they like both deal with awkward conversations, right? In both cases, it's an evening where 2 people get together, and it's kind of funny because in the first one, like you're anticipating a kind of meeting of the minds, and it fizzles into banality. And in the second one, like it's so confrontational until the end when you do get that kind of harmonious moment. And I don't know, they feel very conjoined to me. But
Yeah,
I really loved the ending of the first one so much. You had a turn of phrase there. I think it was like numb optimism, at like the idea that they would both forget it. And that's like such a beautiful way of summarizing that kind of experience of meeting someone and not really hitting it off with them, not really liking them, but also like not really holding them responsible for it, you know?
Yeah.
And the second one was just hilarious. And you knew, I mean, the Nabokov shit.
Yeah.
You knew I was going to lose it at that. Thank you, Sam. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Up next is Eris. Oop, did we lose Eris? Eris was here a second ago. She was here during Sam's reading.
She's no longer in the room.
We lost Eris.
Yeah,
Oh.
she asked in the chat, I think, if Sam would actually read the poem and put the link to the poem in there.
Oh, did she? I saw her ask him. I did not see the link. Let me see if we can. Oh, there it is. Okay, here I don't know, Sam, do you want to give it a go? I'll put the link in the chat again.
Hang on. Oh, I'm not muted. Okay. Let me look at it.
It feels like a trap, doesn't it? Like
It's got to be. I haven't looked
Like, it
at
feels
it, but
like
it's called Gag, and she called it a sex poem. So I'm guessing it's a trap.
The opening line is wild.
Oh,
yeah, and
yep.
she's in.
Yeah,
the
I'm not
entire
reading
time
this.
right now.
Well, let's see. Maybe Eris will pop back in later, and maybe she will read it. But in that case, Adam Johnson is next up. And Adam, you're going to be reading a piece that's forthcoming in Misery Tourism someday, over the course of the next few months, probably.
Adam, I think you're muted.
There. So I thought I was going to read in the open reading portion, but maybe that's where we're at now.
Oh yeah, you mentioned we've had a few people mention over the course of the reading that they wanted to read, so I'm just kind of throwing them in as we go, because I don't think we're going to have time tonight to do a true open mic. So just turn it.
Okay.
Now you're going to be reading a piece that we're going to be publishing in the not too distant future, right?
Yes.
Awesome. It's all yours.
So this is called the Summer of Sam VHS Codpiece. I don't know if you have a link to the Word doc, but what I think there's no link other than that.
That's okay. You can just read it straight.
Okay.
And
all right. My first Ryan Phillippe VHS codpiece, bought new from an ad on Craigslist. Smooth meetup in a Walmart parking lot in some traditional scape tea. Clearly a homemade piece, as the VHS film roll that formed the waistband was all inferior in the fucking like. Beneath the microscope, I could clearly make out scenes from the Summer of Sam. No doubt, a little prank by the maker of said codpiece. But it's okay and all. Not like I need an original Ryan made up in the VHS style, etc. Though I no doubt will find one someday somewhere. So back to my little apologue, etc. I got home and went back to Craigslist, the lost and found section, and sure enough, someone's posted about their missing Summer of Sam VHS movie stolen through a basement window. A little Rambler night job, and poof, I clicked 2 things. Ting, ting, glass taps, gunshots. See, I put 2 and 2. The missing Summer of Sam film, the codpiece Supra that I had bought without a verified claim and such. But you think I sang a song? Hell no. I'm strutting citywide in my fake-ass Ryan Phillippe VHS codpiece. Ain't no microscopes nearest dearest, and that's that, etc. Or so I thought, I assumed, etc. You see, about 2 weeks distant the purchase, I get to the reckoning of a certain characterological development. Some kind of flim-flam urge to murder, like the kind that X wrote about in his famous great book, Why. I was typing, quote, Papa John's near me, end quote, into my iPhone 3 when I hears a gunshot in my brain pan. Something futuristic, inexplicable. So I'll try to explicate the non-X, dig me? It was as though the still frames from the Summer of Sam codpiece were releasing a kind of gas that sounded like a sight unseen. Something phantasmal like legs underwater bent contrary-wise that conspire to kill. You see, the Sam codpiece was convincing me to a murder, there, plainly stated in the Kings. It crept up on me of an evening when I was out strutting in my glazed pumps and the knockoff cod, still representing it as an original Ryan to all and sundry, of course. And the worst of it was a kind of beckoning for a stranger murder in the style of Sam 44 and all. Well, I didn't want to end up in the clink or on the wrong side of the law in any respect, and most certainly did not want to be stripped of my most glorious reputation among the lanes. But by the same token, I didn't want to give up the new purchase. Don't linger on that za. I couldn't part with the codpiece, something spiritual and such, plus consideration for my own purse. I decided to meet with a lawyer, the one I found on a bench. Someone had sharpied a swastika on his forehead, but I didn't hold it against him, see. A lawyer can't be at every bench at once, even if they be capable of shaking a mean calf. His name was Mr. K. Swiss, and we met at his office in the Mall of America. Strange lawyer, no doubt. He was exquisitely dressed in clothes, still holding tags and lavishly groomed in the style of the Buckle, which store was next to his little mall office. In the course of our little half hour, he devoured no fewer than 20 Jolly Ranchers. He placed in his mouth with hands revealing gunpowder stippling. And his whole office redolent of 1996, so I knew he was a legit counselor with the most up-and-up racket practice. He told me that for $5,000, he could advise me not to kill anyone. I paid the $5,000 and he gave the advice. He said he liked spaces with an open concept on HGTV. Then he laughed like the devil himself. But the cod was too strong. And Mr. Swiss could not be with me at all times, though he did offer such for an hourly rate. Back in my little burrow, I was growing most trigger ready and such. I was not dissimilar in a certain quality to that little blackguard Berkowitz. I had to act. It was me or the codpiece. I grabbed a Bowie knife and went for the film roll around my waist. Begone, ye treacherous knockoff cod, I declared, but mostly subtly so as not to arouse suspicion in my villainous neighbor tenants. They'd seen me all wrapped up in film enough, etc. But damn me if the film wouldn't split, so I decided to try and hang myself from it in order to break it. But that didn't work and I almost killed myself. Parenthetical. something that last year would have been most enervating and entered my soul and such when the non-schism of pain and suffering was running rampant, all whoops and jingles. End parenthetical. So in the end, I decided on an old story. The cod had won and I'd killed the lawyer. That's it. It's a classic case of one-dimensional non-chess. So obviously, I was still donning the SOS cod piece, and I made myself all dark and spectral through black Reebok gear, all nondescript and such, and made my way to the mall. I saw the lawyer, Kay, as you know him, get into his car in the ramp on the Hawaiian level, and I cut the lights and followed like a nice little bat with Craven designs and an Ace of Base Toyota rattling. Well, so I followed him to his little stead dig. Parked down the block a ways, spent some time in his backyard watching him watch Cruel Intentions through the window. The irony of this campaign when, wouldn't you know it, but I see the fucking lawyer on his back deck with a blow dart gun, and ping, ping, there's a dart in me, and the lights went out in the grass. Applied with sizz water, I awake in a crematorium of sorts, the kind kept by vampire lawyers who keep scandal sheets and suck on ranchers. K-Swiss gave me a whole spiel about his special brethren of the craft. K-Swiss kids, the Buick Riviera schemes, the LOL girls, and their light bright hell scenes. It's all been told before. And so he asked me for some final words. I ask him just to cut off the damn tape and free me from this goddamn film strip. He pulls out a most special incisors, a head trimmer with a dome piece bust that resembles Freddie Prinze Jr., and I know the jig is up. The tape is cut and the dagger goes in right at the moment that Kay whispers to me, death and orgasm. Dig.
I love this piece. I love the language in this piece. This is like, when I was reading it, I immediately thought of like Nadsat and A Clockwork Orange. And you said you have actually not read that, right? I think you mentioned in your thing, but it's that same kind of like mix of like this deep, like hilariously playful nihilism and like invented language, like invented cadence, right? And like invented manners of speech, and all the wordplay in this, all the puns, all the way that language will loop back on itself. It's all really beautiful and very funny and very well done. Thank you, Adam.
Well, thanks, William. And if you still want me to read that other poem, I'm happy to do it.
Yeah, we're gonna do that at the end. We've got, I think, a couple more readers, and then we're.
I love the I love the cod piece. I just the image the whole time is excellent. Cannot believe though that the lawyer parks in Hawaii when everyone knows that Arizona's where it's at, level 4.
Right. There's lots of levels at the Mega Mall.
Too many fucking levels.
I'm gonna mute because it's not G-rated.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Adam. Derek, Eris isn't back, is she? We'll give her another shot after Derek. Derek is up next.
Awesome. Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Loud and clear.
Awesome. Sam combining Nabokov, and I know I say it wrong, but this is just how I know to say it.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think Sam's the one pronouncing it correctly, but I always kind of like just Americanize it and say, yeah, that Sam's saying it correctly, but I always just say Nabokov, like I shorten it and Americanize it. But yeah.
Well,
it is Nabokov. I said Nabokov for 15 years, and it is Nabokov.
Okay, I'm gonna try it. Nabokov.
I heard a girl in a Yale lecture say that on YouTube, so that's how I said it.
That's canon, then. Like that's absolute everything that
I heard. I heard Anne Hathaway say it.
All right. Oh yeah, that was awesome. I'm gonna read, aren't I? So yeah, that was really good. Nabokov and boxing. That's like everything I like. I've never done this before, so I'm sorry. I apologize in advance, but it's short, so it shouldn't. But I'm not going to publish this. This is the first. So I'm in an editing process right now, and I had to say goodbye to some shit because I was taking from here and there. And so this used to be the first chapter of something that I had talked about and read a couple of things from here called The Horrors of Puerto Plata. And I'm not ever going to be able to read it again, and I'm not going to do anything with it for sure. And so I thought it'd be cool to just like read it one time. And so thank you so much for letting me be that narcissistic. All right. And the sentence is really long, so I'm gonna like make sure I'm breathing. At last, after years of exchanging manuscripts, poorly written, poorly disguised memoirs, riddled with errors, structural and grammatical, penned in fugue states, egged on by irresponsible nootropic and prescription drug use and late night phone calls to each other, often spilling over into the next morning, each unable to detangle from the other, sloppily passed on to increasingly suspicious publishers, unmoved by the quality of the work, but sufficiently frightened by the chaotic energy the men exuded in their cover letters, private messages, text and video, short 3 to 5 minute video introductions, usually accompanying a new text, taken on the whole as a series of incomprehensible threats as opposed to works of art, such that the unlucky recipients were careful to not endanger themselves, their literary press, or, God forbid, their families, and tactfully, or so they thought, eased the ever-increasing reams of papers neatly jogged into their slush piles with promises of thoughtful, deliberate consideration, and one trip to Austin, Texas to meet in the flesh, Chase's words, for a proper writer's retreat, Blake's term, where immediately the two set off to embarrass themselves, play acting as over-inebriated tourists in the various honky-tonks and dive bars littering the outskirts of town, eventually boiling over into a fist fight. Blake struck first, grazing Chase's left cheek, but landing mostly air. Chase countered smartly to Blake's ribs, buckling him instantly and settling the matter. Spurred on by an unspoken desire to inhabit the other, something which had been obviously fueling their literary friendship, driving it every forward to some unknown explosive ending, which they both secretly assumed would be grist for their masterpiece. Stubbornly sure the other was too busy working on a melancholic suburban coming-of-age picaresque novel, then cooling off in respective hometowns, not speaking for 2 years, spending much of their time calling mutual friends to inquire discreetly about the other. What is he working on? Has he asked about me? Does he know I've moved apartments? Has he settled down with one of those sad towny girls? Until circumstances and desire conspired, and they set off to the Dominican Republic to reignite their fading friendship in the only suitably, bravely fatalistic fashion their weak imaginations would allow. The two men took to sleeping with whores. At first, separately. It will be good to swim in the ocean. I could go for a tropical drink. I may take up spearfishing while we're there. I've always been attracted to the Hispanic temperament, particularly in letters. Will there be a windsurfing shop? Or perhaps a local scuba dive at the resort to explore the reefs? These and other things were said over the phone and in messages typed back and forth by one, the other, or both. I will be conducting some research for a novella I'm working on about an expatriate. I will be doing the same. Oh, how funny, and etc.
Derek, I have 2 questions for you. Number 1, as a Southern writer, is it offensive for me to compare you to Faulkner? Is that a borderline racist? No, there was a serious
that's
Faulkner
an offensive thing.
There was a serious Faulkner-esque vibe to this piece. Number 2, was this cut because the larger work has been axed, or just because you're editing the larger work and you decided this wasn't right?
I thought for the past, I think 4 or 5 months that I was working on something separate and that I had finished my book, and because you send the book off to a publisher and you hope or whatever, and then you're like, okay, I'll just copy edit. And as I started to, I had just realized that I had not put down the thing I wanted to put down. So stuff around what I basically stole from that to put into my book, stuff around that kind of gets cut.
Gotcha. And is this at all related to months and months ago, you read a piece about a couple of writers attending this really hectic literary party / reading thing? Was that a part of this larger constellation of works, or was that something totally different?
That's from my book. So that's part of characters and was then. But I think you hit at the thing, which is there's that similar, you know what I mean? So it's pretty easy to pull.
Yeah,
and be
right,
like,
right.
well, instead of there's just being two, you can just put them into this scene. But yeah, so that's good. That's a good thing that they compare with each other, since I'm pilfering one for another. But
Okay, my fourth and final question, Derek. When can we buy your fucking book?
I've got no, I mean, I'm just working on it. You know what I mean? I gotta make the thing.
Right. It's still very much a work in progress, set, I guess. So the answer is hopefully someday, and we're just gonna have to keep hounding you until it happens.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Derek. That was awesome. Next up, actually, we only really have one thing on the docket left, but Rudy, quickly, do you mind if we push your game demo to next week, or do you want to do that? We can still do it tonight if you want, but I know you.
No, that's fine. I was gonna probably run it next week or in the after party maybe.
Gotcha. Okay, because I know you were a little worried about time on that one. And the only other thing is Eris, who still seems to be gone. Does anyone want to read Eris's piece that she shared with us? I guess it's not fair to read it if she's not here, so maybe she'll come next week and read it then. Okay, so that leaves only one thing. So earlier this week, I guess I should offer a little context for this. So last week there was a little Twitter brouhaha. There was a little people were ready to throw down over some trivial poem that was published in 3 a.m. magazine. It was basically a poem about Gia Tolentino. Am I even pronouncing her name right? Who is either a major or very minor literary figure, contemporary literary figure, depending on what you consider a major or minor figure. But anyway, this guy wrote this poem that was ostensibly sort of dedicated to her, about her, where he, depending on how you read the poem, he either was it was either a homage or sort of it was either a sort of you know what I'm saying. It was either a kind of an homage to her, or it was a kind of creepy
some people took it as harassment.
Some people took it, yeah.
I know there's a line you're trying, and you're doing awesome. That's all.
I am trying to what's the intelligent design thing, teach both sides of the controversy. I'm trying to teach both sides of the controversy. The reality is I thought it was a totally innocuous and kind of bad poem, but people flip shit about it. And there was a real fuss. And ultimately, either this guy asked 3 a.m. magazine to pull the poem, or they chose to pull it. And it's not at all clear what actually happened there. But the poem is gone. And since that poem no longer exists, someone authored 8 way more offensive poems about literary figures for misery tourism. And in order to protect the anonymity of that author, what we're going to do tonight is 8 different authors are each going to read one of those poems. Okay. Anyway, so this first poem is called Bret Easton Ellis, Bret Easton Ellis, Just This Once. And our friend Gigi Rowland is going to read this one.
All right. Bret Easton Ellis, Just This Once. Don't talk dirty to me. It's already filthy enough back there.
Thank you, Gigi. The next poem is called, the next poem is called Margaret Atwood's, excuse me, Miraculously Perky Breasts. And Sarah is going to be sharing this one.
I'm so excited.
Your first
Okay.
time reading.
I know, that's not even mine. Wow. Okay. Margaret Atwood's miraculously perky breasts with nipples kept erect by regular transfusions from young writers who will never get their shot.
That was fantastic. Thank you, Sarah. You share your work next time, okay?
Yeah, tell me what to read and I'll do it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I just muted myself at the wrong time. Okay, next, our own Josh Sherman is going to be reading a poem entitled Jeffrey Toobin, Please. Oh no, did we lose Josh? 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 Josh, are you still conscious, buddy? Are you still in there? Oh no. Oh, okay. We'll circle back to Josh in a second. So next, Rudy is going to be reading a poem entitled Amanda Gorman, Has Anyone Ever Told You That?
Okay, so before I read this poem, I just wanted to say something. So I feel a little bit uncomfortable reading this poem, and I'm gonna turn on my webcam because I'm actually white, so I don't feel very comfortable. So it's like, I was hemming and hawing about it, and I was like, well, kind of want to sort of, I don't know. I just want to be sensitive about it. So I'm actually going to have my friend read this poem. Yeah. So here's my friend who has a very similar voice to me. Amanda Gorman, has anyone ever told you that, wait, no, I shouldn't have said anything. Never mind, never mind, never mind. I'm sorry. I'm really, really sorry.
Thank you, Rudy. Thank you, Rudy. That was amazing. Next up, actually, quick Josh Sherman check. Josh? Nope. Next up, Derek is going to be reading a poem entitled Jonathan Franzen Stop.
Jonathan Franzen, stop. I don't need you to explicate the fine details of what's happening when you're inside me. But maybe after we're done, you could take a look at my manuscript. I would love that.
Yes. Amazing. Spectacular. Thank you. Thank you, Derek. Another Josh Sherman check. Mic check 1 2 1 2. Are you with us, Josh? Nope. Okay. The next one, the next poem, I'm going to be reading the next one. It's called Joyce Carol Oates is Active. Now, funny story. I've been blocked on Twitter by Joyce Carol Oates for reasons totally unrelated to the content of this poem. I exhumed one of her old tweets and I may have dunked on her about it, or she may have perceived I was dunking on her about Anyway, I've been blocked by Joyce Carol Oates. I'm not bitter, but I will be reading this poem. Joyce Carol Oates is active on Twitter, even now at 83 years old. I wonder how many horny DMs she gets from men who read her one story in high school and popped a boner at the thought of that lost girl. And now want to relive just a bit of that lost wonder. Okay, and next up, David Foster Wallace will be reading. Dan will be reading a poem entitled David Foster Wallace, How Would You Feel?
David Foster Wallace, how would you feel if I dug up your bones like Carl Tanzler and did things to honor them and did things to dishonor them? You would probably feel nothing, think nothing, and write nothing insightful about the experience. Alas.
Awesome. Thank you, Dan. Now, before we do the last one, I do want to give Josh Sherman one last chance here. If not, we may have to, somebody else might have to read Josh's. Anyway,
I'll read
okay.
Josh's.
Okay. We'll give him one shot. We'll let Adam. Adam, you're going to be reading, I hope I'm pronouncing her first name right. Gia Tolentino Walks into a Bar.
Thank you for pronouncing her name because I don't know how. But Gia Tolentino walks into a bar in any city in the whole goddamn world except that one, joyous at the opportunity to get fucked by a man or woman or whatever, on the basis of her conversational wit or body or shoes or literally anything but the fact that she has been published in some bullshit rag called The New Yorker.
More than once. Yeah, thank you, Adam. Thank you, Adam. Thanks so much. That was awesome. Next, so Griffin, Josh lost his chance. It's all you. So you're going to be reading Jeffrey Toobin, please. Yeah.
Jeffrey Toobin, please look me in the eyes if you're going to do that. Otherwise, I get nothing out of it.
Killed it. Thank you, guys. I want to thank you so much for doing that. I'm glad we were all able to burn our literary careers down together. But yeah, no, and I just want to say, like, Misery Tourism's official statement is, if you censor one mildly creepy poem, 8 deeply offensive ones will rise up in its stead. All right, thank you so much, guys. That, I think, is pretty much it for tonight. Did anyone have anything else to share before we're gonna close out here? I guess we have a couple of minutes. Here. If not,
I have
last
a playfully, and well, I didn't write this, but from Leon Bloy. Okay. It's about a woman getting all her teeth pulled. Let me make sure this is not super long. Okay, it's only 4 pages. Hang on. I didn't write this. This is Leon Bloy. She remembered having known before, on the Rue des Aveyettes, an industrious little Jew who lived off 20 more or less suspect livelihoods. The peculiar old man ostensibly made a dirty business of pawn tickets, and she had let herself be ransomed by him a good number of times. He was precisely the man she needed, that guy. He was certainly not encumbered by scruples. For 2 francs, one could make him clean a tile in the morgue with his tongue. Besides, he knew her, and she would never denounce him to anyone. Monsieur Nathan, she said, arriving at his place, do you need some money? This Monsieur Nathan was a little Judaic putridity, as one will have sight of, it appears, until our planet's abrogation. The Middle Ages, at least, had the good sense of confining them in reserved kennels and imposing on them a special second-hand frock that allowed people to avoid them. When one absolutely had to deal with these foul-smelling people, one did it in hiding, as if from an infamy, and one purified himself afterwards as best one could. The shame and peril of coming into contact with them was the Christian antidote of their pestilence, since God depended in perpetuity on such vermin. Monsieur Nathan had had diverse fortunes. He had lost millions, and, although he was quite clever, he was considered among his brothers a little gullible. His real name was Judas Nathan, but he wanted to be called Arthur, and such was his principle of death. This Jew was eaten away by the Christian vice of vanity. Successively tailor, dentist, merchant in painting, seller of women, and crooked capitalist, but always given over to dandyism. He had sacrificed everything, compromised everything for his ambition. A glorious hour, however, had sounded in his life. He had become director of the Legitimist Journal toward the last days of the Second Empire, but precisely this elevation had been his downfall. The grace of Israel had left him, and he had made some stupid business decisions. His discomfiture, although sensational, had been too ridiculous for him to ever recover from. Now, God alone could know what he was dealing in. Ah, so it's you, dear child. Good God, it's been so long since I've seen you. I thought you were lost forever. Your disappearance has made us all desperate, and on account of you, I give you my word of honor that I was inconsolable. But you found pity on your victims, and you've come back to us for sure. Poor lamb, what's left you? I hope that savage beast you were living with. Those words, tantamount to nothing and proffered with a distant, defunct voice, seemed to come out of a vertigious phonograph, where they had been inscribed for 60 years, were intended above all to hide the surprise of this old brigand. Monsieur Nathan, responded the visitor firmly, but without anger, I've not come to confide in you and I ask you to speak with me properly without familiarity, if possible. It's a very simple business matter. You know how to extract teeth, right? How much would you charge me to take out all my teeth? For once in his life, Nathan did not even try to dissimulate his stupefaction. Mechanically, he verified with a gesture his two diarrhea blonde painted tufts, which garnished his temples, tight-ended around his collapteran torso, the bell cord of his dressing gown, which had a pissy firmament color to it, and returning with a forced march from the end of the room, the first commotion had been launched. Take out all your teeth, he cried, immediately animated, bursting out, almost human. Every tooth? Young lady, I must have misheard you, or I am so overwhelmed with disgrace that you should plan to come here and mock me. Veronique showed him her head. And that, sir, what do you think of it? Is this a joke? I repeat, I want you to remove all my teeth, just as I've had all my hair this morning removed. It's absolutely necessary. For reasons I don't need to tell you, I've approached you because I fear an ordinary dentist would not do it. You must know me, I suppose. Nobody will ever know I came here. I've 3 louis to offer you for an operation that won't take 2 hours, and I'll make you a gift of my teeth to throw into the bargain. It seems to me that you won't have made a bad day of it. If that doesn't suit you, good evening. I'll go elsewhere. Is that yes or no? The dispute was long, however. Never had this miserable Nathan been shaken in such a rude manner. He saw clearly that Veronique was not crazy, but he could not conceive why a pretty girl would want to become ugly. Veronique, discerning with surprise what was happening in this muddy soul, decided, despite her repugnance, to conclude the matter with intimidation. He didn't hesitate so much when it was a question of little Sarah. I know by heart that whole story, and many others still. Pay careful attention. Let's go. Be reasonable. Don't let me languish any longer. Once again, nothing bad will happen to you because of me, I promise, and it's always good to earn 3 louis. She was referring to an abominable affair of an abortion in which the mother had nearly perished, in which it caused great untold solicitude to the handsome Arthur. He agreed immediately and went to look for his tool of torture, arranging everything with small, nervous movements, and finally installed Veronique into a deep leather armchair in full light. She put back her head and displayed a double row of luminous teeth, teeth to the hardest human metals. The abject torturer, with a last impulse of vague compassion, declared to her that she was going to suffer atrociously. I'm prepared, responded the saint. I hope to have enough courage. I'll try to remember I deserve even much greater suffering. Then the horror began. With each tooth that was pulled, poor Veronique, against her will, let out a light cry, and her eyes filled with tears, while streams of frothy blood ran down the thick cloth of the kitchen apron that Nathan had tied about her neck. When the upper jaw had been completely emptied, the executioner had to stop. The ill-fated girl had lost consciousness and writhed spasmodically. He had to reanimate her, staunch the blood that was leaving in torrents, stop the hemorrhaging, calm his nerves, all in a day's work for this person omniscient in vile surgical practices. He expressed his advice to put off the second part of the operation for a few days, in the secret hope that he would never see her again, and thus escape a chore that displeased him, having, moreover, carefully pocketed the money. But at the end of a quarter of an hour, the surprising martyr energetically indicated to him, without saying a word, that she wanted to continue. Nothing was more horrible. The operator earned his salary. Ordinary aesthetics were without effect on this bundle of routed nerves, horribly shaken already, in spite of the patient's heroism. The syncope recurred 5 or 6 times, each time more disquieting. 1 minute, Nathan, terrified, believed she had tetanus. Finally, the torture was completed, and little by little, equilibrium returned. Veronique drank a cordial prepared in advance and, suffering from atrocious pain, but having become empress of herself again, she looked sadly at the table, at the treasure laid out from the casket of her mouth, empty forever. Then, approaching a mirror, she let out a scream, one funeral scream only, for her devastated beauty, a type of groaning that she could not suppress. The sordid Nathan, surprised by his own agitation, stammered some empty phrases, citing the species of violence he had undergone. That is when the Christian, with a nobility of humility eternally unintelligible to base souls, obeying that fury of self-debasement that is one of the characteristics of mystical love, took up the hand of the foul bandit, that waxy, podgy hand, which had held all sorts of scum, and kissed it, like the instrument of her martyrdom, with her bloody and deformed lips. Goodbye, Monsieur Nathan, she then said, in a voice she no longer recognized. Thank you. Don't be upset. You often do nasty things in your profession, but I'll pray to my Savior for you.
That was
That's
wild,
it.
Sam. Who did you say that was?
It's Leon Bloy, The Desperate Man. The book's fucking awesome.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out. It's great. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think, okay, last call, guys. Anyone else have anything they want to read? Now's the chance. Now's your chance. If not, we're done. No, I think we're done for the night. As always, I'll keep the Zoom call open for a little bit here, but that pretty much concludes the reading portion of Misery Loves Company. If you're watching this on YouTube after the fact, we do this every single fucking week, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific. We tweet out the link about 15-20 minutes beforehand on our Twitter account at Misery Tourism, and you can find videos of previous episodes on YouTube or also on miserytourism.com. Thank you so much for reading, everyone. It was a great fucking night, and yeah, fuck it, we are done.